Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fogman Stories. I'm so glad to have you here for another mysterious and captivating tale, one that takes place in an old, iconic park right in the heart of Saigon. As you can see on the screen, we're locating it clearly on Google Earth. Tao Dan Park, one of Saigon's most important green lungs, and also the only park in the city with a busy road cutting right through it. Every day, thousands of vehicles pass by this very spot, and every time I pass by Tao Dan Park, I always notice a grave sitting quietly inside. Every few years, it gets a fresh coat of paint, but it's still the same old grave. So old, in fact, that no one really knows when it first appeared. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about that grave, hidden within Tao Dan Park. But before we step inside, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video to support the stories we tell here on Fogman. Thank you. Chapter 1. The Guide. I'm not someone who's superstitious, but I do have a strange fondness for ghost stories, especially the ones set right here in Saigon. To be honest, I'm more scared of people than I am of ghosts. All those creepy tales that get passed around, I don't know why, but they've always pulled me in. Maybe it's because I work as a freelance writer. I'm always out wandering, exploring alleys and old streets, looking for stories. Sometimes I film short clips and upload them to YouTube. I like stories that are strange, mysterious, and just the right amount of chilling. That's my kind of thing. One late afternoon, just as the sun was setting, I called a motorbike taxi near Nguyen Thi Minh Khai Street. I planned to drop by my regular cafe tucked inside an alley. By some twist of fate, I ended up hopping onto a really beat-up old bike driven by an older guy, skinny, bony face, sun-darkened skin, but with surprisingly sharp eyes. His helmet had a crack on one side. He wore plastic sandals. His old dream bike looked like it was barely holding together, but the engine ran smoother than mine. When I told him I wanted to go near Tao Dan Park, he gave me a half smile and asked, "Hey kid, do you believe in ghosts?" I laughed. "Sure I do. Why?" "Well, that place has got a lot of ghosts. You know there's a grave inside Tao Dan Park?" "What kind of grave, uncle?" I asked. "An old one. No name, no headstone, just sitting there in the park. Lots of folks have seen strange things there. Some even fainted right on the spot." The wind brushed past my face as the motorbike hummed along. His story gave me chills, not fear, but the kind of chill that comes from hearing something completely new and strange. His name was Uncle Moy, over 60 years old. He told me he used to work as a night security guard at Tao Dan Park, had done it for over a decade. He said one night, while doing his rounds near the old restroom area, he saw someone lurking behind a tree. Thinking it was a junkie, he aimed his flashlight, but there was nothing there. Then his flashlight suddenly started flickering, even though the battery was full. And then, out of nowhere, he saw them, wet footprints on the cement floor. But the night was completely dry. No rain, no dew, just prints. Maybe someone was playing a trick? I asked. "That's what I thought at first," he said, but then the other night guards started seeing it too. All of them saw the same thing. A woman in a white dress. Long hair. Standing under the oil trees, just standing there. Not moving. One guy even said she turned around, but her face had no eyes. No mouth. I shivered. Locals say there's a grave there. He continued. Been there since before 1975. Probably the grave of a young woman who died unjustly. No one dares touch it. The tree roots have grown over the top, like they're trying to cover it, like they're hiding something. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Uncle Moy had said. I started searching online, through old news articles, paranormal forums, Facebook groups. Turns out, a few people had mentioned a nameless grave hidden inside Tao Dan Park. But no one agreed on the location. Some said it was near the old performance stage. Others thought it was in the thick grove behind the public restrooms. Tao Dan is one of Saigon's oldest and largest parks. By day, it's packed with people, joggers, children playing, tourists sipping coconut juice. But at night, under the yellow lights, the park takes on a whole different face. The trees seem taller. The air turns heavy. Sounds get swallowed by the dark. I made up my mind. I had to see it with my own eyes. The next night, I didn't sleep. I waited until nearly midnight. Then threw on a jacket and packed a small bag, flashlight, water, and my phone fully charged. I walked into the park from the street, passing a few night owls still chatting by the entrance. But no one ventured deep inside. I followed the stone path near the old stage. Massive oil trees loomed on either side, their long branches casting strange shadows. The lamp posts gave off a dim yellow glow. I turned off my flashlight, letting my eyes adjust to the darkness. The deeper I walked, the colder it got. Not the kind of cold from the wind, but the kind that seeps into your skin, like stepping into a freezer. Then I stopped in front of one of the biggest oil trees. I didn't know why, but I knew this was the place Uncle Moy had described. I turned on my flashlight and swept the beam across the ground. And there it was, a low mound, barely visible, covered in moss and fallen leaves. It didn't look like much, but the shape was unmistakably that of a grave. I knelt down. There was a faint smell in the air, earthy, slightly sweet, a hint of incense mixed with damp soil. I reached out to touch one of the stones on top. Sheffef. A sound behind me. I turned sharply. Nothing. Only trees, shadows, silence. I held my breath. My heart pounded. Then, a soft breeze passed behind me, and I heard it, a whisper. Go back. I wasn't sure at first. I spun in a full circle. Nothing. I waited 5 more minutes. Nothing. But the sense of being watched stayed with me. I slowly stepped away, flashing my light one last time over the mossy mound. And then I left, quickly. As soon as I stepped out from under the trees, the air lightened. It was subtle, like I had just walked out of a room that wasn't mine. That night, lying in bed, one question repeated in my mind. Who is the woman beneath the oil tree? Chapter 2. The night at the park and the oil tree. I returned to Tao Dan Park exactly 1 week after that strange night. Ever since I saw that silent grave mound and heard the faint whisper in the wind, leave, I hadn't been the same. I didn't feel fear, exactly, more like something was waiting. Like I'd stepped into a story that had been buried, and now it wanted to be told. That night kept replaying in my mind, the mossy mound, the shifting shadows, the cold that sank deep into my back like wet hands, and most of all, her, the woman in white, the silent watcher under the trees. I knew I had to go back. This time, I came prepared. I packed my camera, a better flashlight, a small audio recorder, a notebook, and a bottle of water. I entered the park at 11:30 p.m., parked my motorbike just outside, and walked in slowly. The city lights faded behind me. The deeper I walked into the park, the quieter it became. The lamplight was dim, casting long, trembling shadows through the rows of massive oil trees. Their trunks were thick, ancient, like silent guardians of something hidden beneath. The air was still, no breeze, no insects, only the sound of my own steps on the stone path. I made my way to the same spot, the mound beneath the tree. It was harder to find in the dark, blending in with the dirt and undergrowth. But when I shined my flashlight carefully, it appeared again, that low rectangular rise, covered in moss, with a few stones scattered on top like an old forgotten altar. I stood still, listening. Then, slowly, I approached. I set my voice recorder on the nearby bench, clicked it on, and stepped closer to the mound. This time, I didn't touch anything. I just observed. The dirt had small cracks, like it had once been disturbed and then packed again. The stones were arranged too evenly to be random. I knelt down. Then I heard it, thud, a soft, heavy sound behind me, like someone jumping down from a low branch. I spun around. Nothing. I swept the flashlight left and right. Nothing but trees. But I knew what I heard. I hadn't imagined it. I turned back toward the mound and froze. There, about 15 feet away, partially obscured behind another tree trunk, was a figure, a woman, dressed in white, hair long and straight, hanging down over her shoulders. She was standing perfectly still. I couldn't see her face, but every part of me felt her presence. I couldn't breathe. My heart thudded in my chest. My hands trembled. I reached slowly for my camera, raised it, and click. The flash lit up the trees for a split second. When I lowered the camera, she was gone. No sound, no trace, just the soft rustle of leaves in the darkness. I ran. I didn't look back, but as I passed beyond the circle of oil trees and stepped into the main path, I felt it again, that rush of warm air, like I had crossed a border between two worlds. And just as I left the trees behind, I heard her voice again, this time clearer, unmistakably female. "You shouldn't be here." It wasn't threatening. It was sad. Back home, I checked my camera. The photo was blurry, taken in low light, but in the far corner, near the base of a tree, there was a pale, vaguely human shape, too blurred to be certain, but it was there. Then I listened to the audio. 10 minutes of nighttime ambience. My voice, my footsteps, the occasional snap of twigs. But at exactly 9 minutes and 32 seconds, I heard it, a soft female whisper, clear, real, "Don't come back." I replayed it 5 times. It didn't change. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't my imagination. Someone was there that night, and she did not want me to find her. Chapter 3. The Nameless Grave. After that night, I stayed away from Tao Dan Park for a few days. Not because I was scared, but because I felt like I'd stirred something that shouldn't have been touched. Like I had stepped too close to a memory that had long been buried, both literally and figuratively. I decided to approach the mystery from a different angle, by daylight. I figured I could learn more from the living before going back to the dead. So one Sunday morning, I returned to the park. The sun was warm, the trees cast soft shadows on the path, and the whole place felt nothing like the one I'd walked through at night. Tao Dan looked innocent, but I knew better. I wandered around until I spotted a cleaning lady, probably in her late 50s, sweeping near the old restroom building. That area was always quieter than the rest. I walked up and greeted her politely. "Excuse me, Auntie, have you worked here long?" She looked up, squinting against the light. "Why do you ask, son?" "I'm researching old stories around Saigon," I said carefully. "I heard there might be a grave here in the park, near the big oil trees." She paused, leaned on her broom, and stared at me for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Yeah, there is. A few young folks like you have asked before, but no one really believes it. Do you know anything about it?" I pressed gently. She looked around, lowered her voice. "When I first started working here, back in the 90s, an old security guard named Fat showed me. It's small, hidden between the big oil trees, near a cracked stone bench. It doesn't look like much. Just a mound, no gravestone, no incense, just dirt and a few rocks. Does anyone know who's buried there?" She shook her head. "No one's sure, but the story goes back in the French colonial days. There was a young Vietnamese woman. She was assaulted and killed by French soldiers. Someone buried her here in secret, probably to cover it up. Later, they planted those oil trees, and the roots covered the grave." I felt a chill go through me, even in the bright daylight. "Have you ever seen anything strange there?" She looked me straight in the eye. "Yes." I held my breath. "Once, I came in early, around 4:30 a.m. It was still dark. I walked past that area and saw a woman in white standing behind the trees. I thought it was someone exercising early. So I called out, 'You're up early, huh?' No answer. I got closer, and she vanished." She paused. "I had a migraine the entire day. Since then, I never sweep that area before sunrise." I wrote everything down. Things were starting to connect. A woman who died unjustly during French rule. Buried secretly. Forgotten. And now, returning as a ghost in white beneath the trees. But no one knew her name. I searched online forums and came across a very old post in a French-Vietnamese historical archive. It described an incident from 1910, involving the disappearance of a Vietnamese maid named Thanh who worked in the governor's mansion, just adjacent to where Tao Dan Park is today. She was rumored to be pregnant by a French officer named Henri Drouet. One rainy night, she disappeared. All they found were her slippers and a handkerchief embroidered with the initials, TH. No body, no investigation. The case was closed quietly. They called her the girl who vanished in the rain. Could she be The woman under the oil tree? That night, I gave the old audio recording from the park to a friend who worked with sound equipment. He cleaned up the background noise and enhanced the clarity. After a few minutes of adjusting frequencies, he looked up, puzzled. "Bro, this isn't wind. This is an actual voice. Female, Vietnamese, real vocal frequency, not interference." I listened again. "Don't come back." Clear as day. I got goosebumps. I knew then. This wasn't some urban legend. Someone was buried there, and someone was still waiting to be heard. Chapter 4. The Dream of the Dead. Ever since I heard that whisper in my recorder, my mind hadn't been at peace. Something had shifted. I could feel it in my sleep. That's when the dreams started. They weren't normal dreams. These weren't the kind that fade away when you wake up. These felt real, too real, as if I was being pulled into someone else's memory. The first dream happened during a rainy night. I stood alone in the middle of Tao Dan Park. The wind was heavy. Rain tapped on leaves. There were no lights, no sound but my footsteps on the wet stone. Then, through the mist, a figure appeared. A woman, dressed in a white dye. Long hair fell over her face. She stood still beneath the oil trees. I couldn't see her expression, but I could feel her sadness like a weight pressing on my chest. I tried to speak, tried to walk toward her, but she whispered first, "Why are you looking for me?" And the dream ended. I started recording everything in my notebook, every word, every feeling, every detail. The dreams kept coming. Sometimes she just stood there. Sometimes I heard soft sobbing in the wind. Sometimes, I felt a cold hand rest on my shoulder as I turned away. She wasn't scaring me. She was asking for help. One night, I dreamt I was standing in the pouring rain. Barefoot, soaked to the bone, I followed the familiar path to the old tree. This time, the grave had been dug up. There was a hole in the ground, deep, black, and endless. I leaned in. I heard her voice again. They lied to me. I didn't deserve this. As I reached toward the earth, her face appeared beneath the soil. Pale, eyes wide open, mouth moving. I jolted awake, soaked in sweat. It was 3:07 a.m. I told everything to Uncle Moy, the motorbike driver who had first mentioned the grave. He listened carefully, then nodded. "You're sensitive to them," he said. "Not everyone sees, hears, or dreams. You've got a connection to the other side." "What should I do?" I asked. "There's someone you should meet. A spiritual master. We call him Thay too. He helped me once before, with a haunting in an old warehouse. He might help you too." I agreed. That afternoon, we visited Thay too at his humble house in Bin Ton. The place smelled of herbs and incense. Amulets and wooden beads hung on the walls. He was in his 70s. Thin, white hair, calm eyes, a voice that barely rose above a whisper. I told him everything, every detail from the first night to the latest dream. He closed his eyes for a long while, then opened them slowly and said, "When someone dies unjustly and is forgotten, their soul clings to the place of death, especially if no one acknowledges them. No prayers, no name, just pain. But this girl, she's not angry. She's just trying to tell her story." He paused again. She's trying to show you something. Something she couldn't say when she was alive. So what should I do? I asked. Return. At 3 a.m. bring incense, rice, salt, and red thread. Do a small offering. And if the earth allows, gently dig. Something may still be there. That night, I packed everything as instructed. Uncle Moy insisted on coming with me. We entered the park at 2:55 a.m. It was darker than usual. The wind cut through us in short, sharp gusts. We walked quickly to the oil tree. It looked exactly the same, but felt different. The air was still heavy, but less hostile, more curious. I lit 3 sticks of incense, placed them near the mound, and whispered a short prayer, asking for permission to disturb the ground. Then, I knelt and started clearing the top layer of soil. The dirt was dry, thick roots twisted beneath the surface like veins. I used a small blade to dig gently around them. And then, clink, the blade hit something hard. We stopped breathing. I brushed away more dirt and roots, revealing a small ceramic jar, sealed tight with a lid. Old, dusty, hidden for who knows how many years. Inside, a rolled-up paper scroll and a faded black and white photograph of a young woman in an dye. Her face calm, her eyes full of sorrow. It was her, Thanh. Chapter 5. The letter buried beneath the tree. Uncle Moy and I stood frozen. The ceramic jar we had just uncovered felt like a portal to another time. A time of secrets, of sorrow, of someone no one had dared speak of in over a century. I held the black and white photo in my hand. The young woman's eyes stared back at me, not with fear, not even pain, just quiet grief, as if she had accepted her fate long ago but never stopped waiting. I unrolled the paper slowly. The letter was old and fragile, written in Vietnamese using classical Han Nam characters. The ink had faded, some corners were torn. I couldn't read it, but Uncle Moy knew a retired teacher, a man named Mr. Tin, who used to teach Han Nam at a nearby temple. We visited him the very next morning. Mr. Tin was in his 80s, frail, soft-spoken, with silver hair and eyes sharp as knives. He took one look at the letter, then sat quietly for a moment. He read, line by line. Then he sighed deeply. "This is a suicide note," he said quietly, "written by a woman named Thanh. Dated the year of gun to it, 1910. I leaned in as he translated aloud. "My name is Thanh. I was born in the year of the tiger. My parents passed early. I lived with my aunt on Mac Din Kai Street. I worked as a maid in the residence of a French officer named Henri Drouet. He promised to marry me, promised to take me to France. But he lied. When I became pregnant, he called me shameful. I was given something to drink. I started bleeding. It wouldn't stop. He threatened to kill me if I told anyone. Tonight, I escaped into the park behind the mansion. I carry this letter with me. If anyone finds it, please tell my mother in the afterlife. I was not wrong. I only loved the wrong man." By the time he finished reading, I couldn't speak. I clutched the photo tighter. She had no grave, no marker, no name. But now, we knew. I had the letter translated and typed into modern Vietnamese. I made 3 printed copies. One for myself, one for the temple, and one to return to her. That night, Uncle Moy, Mr. Tin, and I went back to the oil tree. We brought white flowers, candles, incense, and a wooden plaque engraved with her name. Tan, the woman beneath the oil tree. May you rest in peace. We lit incense and read her letter aloud again. Under the moonlight, the air was different that night. Not cold, not heavy, but gentle, like a mother's hand brushing your hair. I placed the flowers on the mound, returned the photo and the printed letter into the ceramic jar, buried it back beneath the soil, and then I bowed. We left the park just before sunrise. But as I turned back for one last glance, I saw it, just for a second, a woman in white, standing beneath the tree. She wasn't looking away this time. She was looking straight at me. No anger, no pain, just a soft gaze, as if to say, "Thank you." A few days later, I visited the park during daylight. I found something that stopped me in my tracks. The area around the tree was cleaned. The weeds were gone. The ground was neat. A new stone bench had been placed nearby, and beside it, a fresh vase of white flowers. I asked the same cleaning lady about it. She smiled gently. "I thought you did it," she said, "but now that I think about it, I haven't seen anyone come by. At least, not anyone I could see." She paused. "One morning, I found a note there. Just a small piece of paper. It said, 'Thank you.'" I smiled, because I knew exactly who had written it. Someone who had been forgotten for more than 100 years was finally remembered. Chapter 6. The Woman Beneath the Oil Tree. Since that final night, the night we returned her letter and said her name aloud, I hadn't seen her again. No more dreams, no more whispers, no more ghostly glimpses between the trees. Just a silence, but it wasn't empty. It was peaceful, like something had finally settled into place. I still visited Tao Dan Park, not to chase spirits, not to search for signs, just to remember, to sit by the oil tree and feel the breeze, and to let her story rest with the roots below. There was a new bench there now. Someone still left fresh white flowers every week. No one ever claimed to be the one placing them. And yet, somehow, they were always there. One day, I sat on the bench, jotting in my notebook. A small boy walked by, eating ice cream. He stopped beside the flowers, looked at them, and then turned to me. "Hey, mister," he asked, "who died here?" I smiled. "Someone who used to be forgotten," I said, "but not anymore." He nodded, shrugged, and ran off. I watched him disappear into the trees. Strangely, the story began to spread on its own. I never posted about it, never made a video. I didn't even share the photos. But people started talking. Some said they saw a woman in white near the oil tree late at night. Others swore they heard soft crying in the wind. A new guard told me he once felt a gentle hand on his shoulder as he nodded off on the bench. She wasn't scary, he said. She felt kind, like someone saying goodbye. I asked him if he saw her. He smiled. "Yeah, just once. A woman in white, long hair, walking through the trees. She didn't look back, just kept walking, until she disappeared." A week later, I found something strange. Tucked into the side pocket of my backpack, though no one had come near me, was a folded note. The paper was soft, old, the handwriting delicate. "Thank you. I waited for so long to be heard. I'm not afraid anymore. I don't have to stand in the wind forever. When someone remembers me, I'm no longer invisible." There was no name, but I knew who wrote it. And for the first time, I felt tears welling in my eyes, not from fear, but from something deeper, a kind of release. I never published her story, but I told it to those who asked. And now, I tell it to you. Because some spirits don't want revenge. They don't want fear. They just want someone to remember their name. Now, whenever I pass the oil tree, I bow my head. Beneath that tree, a girl named Thanh, once silenced and hidden, is no longer alone. Someone said her name. Someone lit incense for her. Someone carved a memory into the earth. She is not lost. She is home. Maybe some spirits don't haunt to scare. Maybe they return just to be seen, to be heard, to be remembered. She wasn't asking for revenge. She just didn't want to disappear in silence. And now, under the shade of that old oil tree, she finally rests, not alone,